I'm Rebecca.
I'm Caitlin.
I'm Nessa.
This is the Family Showdown! Howdy folks, I'm Hunter Thomason from the Family Showdown. Over on the Dice Tower YouTube channel, I regularly contribute to their Board Game Breakfast variety show. And lately I've been doing a Through the Years series where I'm looking at the top game on Board Game Geek by year. I started with 1970. And what I thought I would do is over here on our Family Showdown channel, I would put all these episodes together by decade so that you have them all in one spot and don't have to look through all the different Board Game Breakfast episodes to find each individual one. So I hope you enjoy it. I want to give thanks to Board Game Geek for their awesome database that made this possible. And I want to say a few caveats. One is that the rankings over time have likely changed. So the rankings are as they were when I produced the episode, and the ratings and all those sorts of things. So things might have changed up a little bit, but still I think this will be an interesting thing to look at. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's start off with this decade. $1980. We finally made it to the 80s. Taking a look at the top 5, we see the number 1 game from 1980 is Civilization, coming in at number 260. This is the original, the granddaddy of them all, Civilization. It spawned many sequels: Advanced Civilization, Mega Civilization. Civilization is a civilization game where you win by advancing in cultural, political, and economic factors. Take a look at the ratings, over 6,700 of them. We see lots of 8s, some 7s and 9s for an overall rating of 7.5. Looking at the weight comes in at a 3.66, kind of a heavy game, especially considering it takes an average of 6 hours to play. A little fun fact, this is supposedly the first video game, board game, or any kind of game to use the idea of a tech tree, a technology tree, where one technology branches off to other technologies that lead to other technologies, like a tree. An additional fun fact, the Sid Meier's Civilization games is supposedly based on the very, very original Civilization game. In fact, one of the producers of the game from Avalon Hill went to Sid Meier and joined his team to make the Sid Meier's Civilization games. So if you're looking to find out where it all started, Civilization might be the game for you. See you next time. 1981. Look at the top 5. We see the number 1 game from 1981, which may have one of the longest names in board gaming, Sherlock Holmes, Consulting Detective, The Thames Murders, and Other Cases, coming in at number 69.
69, dudes!
Sherlock Holmes, and yes, I'm shortening the name down. And Sherlock Holmes, which won the 1985 Spiel des Jahres Award, which it came out in 1981, but won the award in 1985. Well, it was published many, many times. It's still being published. It's been published by 17 different publishers. But where was I? Oh yes, Sherlock Holmes is an open structure game where you don't really have a lot of direction. You just say, go out and solve this case. You look at newspaper articles and directories and maps and all sorts of storybooks to figure out the case. You're trying to solve the case more efficiently than Sherlock Holmes did. Take a look at the ratings, over 14,000 of them. It has been around a long time and it's a very popular game. We see lots of 8s, lots of 10s and 9s for an overall rating of 7.8. Taking a look at the weight, it comes in at 2.7, and that all comes from the overall challenge of this game, because there's not a lot of structure, there's not a lot of rules to this game. In fact, looking at something that was written over on Board Game Geek, in the description of the game, it says, this is not a board game, no dice, no luck, but a challenge to your mental abilities. So if you're looking for not a board game, this might be the not a board game for you. 1982. Taking a look at the top 5, we see the number 1 game from 1982 is Survive. It only took 12 long years, but finally it has happened. A game I actually own. I have the 30th anniversary edition of Survive, Escape from Atlantis. In Survive, you're trying to escape the island of Atlantis, trying to get to the edge of the board before the island sinks, before you're getting eaten by sharks and sea monsters and whales and all sorts of craziness. Taking a look at the ratings, over 17,000 of them. We see lots of 8s and 7s for an overall rating of 7.3. Taking a look at the weight, it comes in at a 1.71, a pretty lightweight family game. But this game is definitely not for every family. It is brutal. It is mean. It is take-thatty. But it is a family favorite of ours because we love playing it. We love talking smack. We love eating little meeples with sea monsters and destroying boats.
You do that.
See what happens. Oh.
Yeah! It's on
It's
now!
a boat!
It's on now, sucker!
Alright, let's move something. Let's move that whale and knock that boat over.
Oh my gosh, you do that, I swear.
Shark! It's a shark! 1, 2. Oh, no. So if you're the type of gamer that can laugh at your own misfortune, survive, Escape from Atlantis might be the game for you. Or if you prefer it in space, there's an in-space version now. See you next time. 1983. Taking a look at the top 5, we see the number 1 game from 1983 is the war game Up Front, coming in at 455. But it's the 19th ranked war game. Up Front is a World War II man-to-man combat simulation game. It's a 2-player game. Each player has a deck of cards. It is a card-driven game. The cards act as your troops, your movements and other actions, your terrain, even acts as the random number generator in the game. Taking a look at the ratings, over 2,000 of them. We see tons of 8s, lots of 9s and 10s, for an overall rating of 7.9. Taking a look at the weight, it comes in at a 3.39. And doing some research on this game, I came up with a few things I found very interesting. First and foremost, there is no map. But what I found most interesting, the math nerd in me found most interesting, was this concept of relative range. Since we don't have a map, we don't actually move our cards around when we're attacking each other. Basically, each unit starts at a certain distance from each other. Basically, 0 is their range. And if they move forward, they increase that to 1 and 2 and so forth. And basically, you take the number 5. Why the number 5? I don't know. Take the number 5, subtract those numbers, and that tells you actually how far they are apart. So if they're both at 0, they're actually 5 units of distance apart. But if one's at 2, the other one's at 3, that adds up to 5. Now they're at point blank range. So if you're looking for a war game that doesn't have a map, that doesn't use dice, doesn't have miniatures, this might be the game for you. 1984. Taking a look at the top 5, we see the number 1 game from 1984 is the card game Wizards, coming in at 732. Slightly better than Eat Poop You Cat. Wizards is a breakthrough in trick-taking games. You have the standard 52-card deck, but you also have 4 wizards and 4 jesters. Wizards are high, jesters are low. Genius. Wizards is a variant of spades, just like I said. Only difference really is wizards are high, jesters are low. But that little trick makes it twice as good as spades. Is this really the best 1984 can do? Come on, 1984, you got to pick it up. Big Brother is watching. Taking a look at the rankings, we see lots and lots of 7s, mostly 8s and 6s left over. Over 7,000 rankings. Crazy. For an overall ranking of 6.9. Taking a look at the weight, comes in at a 1.74.
She lied. She lied to us.
So I went out onto Amazon, and I see that the game Wizards is readily available. Even has this cool thing, and it says, over 3 million copies sold. For only $8.46, at least here in the US. And free delivery was Amazon Prime. This game can be yours. 1985. Taking a look at the top 5, we see the number 1 game from 1985 is Advanced Squad Leader, coming in at number 256, but it's the 11th best board game. Advanced Squad Leader is a reorganization of the rules from Squad Leader, which made our list in the way back times. Way back. I don't know how reorganized it is, because when I did a little research on Advanced Squad Leader, and I see if you get the full rules, like all the rules for Advanced Squad Leader, it's about 1,000 pages. Doesn't sound very reorganized to me. If 1,000 pages is too much to digest, they do have these little ASL starter kits that you can find, mostly on the secondhand market. They give you a little tiny chunk, little bite-sized pieces of the rules, and you learn the game kind of as you go. And then once you go through those, you can jump into the whole three-wing binder craziness of the full rules. Take a look at the ratings, over 3,000 of them. Look at all those 10s. But with the BGG magic, it comes out to an 8 rating, which is pretty good. Pretty good. An 8's pretty good. Taking a look at the weight, it comes in at a 4.72. And I did a little research, a little math magic. I looked up on Board Game Geek. I looked at all the games on Board Game Geek to have at least 50 weight ratings of weight. And it comes in tied for the 3rd heaviest game on all of Board Game Geek that meets those requirements. So I'm still looking. I'm still looking for that person to teach me my first real war game. Are you that person? 1986. Taking a look at the top 5, we see the number 1 game from 1986 is 1830, Railways and Robber Barons, coming in at number 167. But it's the number 1 ranked 18XX game. 1830 being an 18XX game means you're buying railway companies. You're developing track. You're purchasing trains. You're buying and selling stock. You're trying to bankrupt your opponents and other tomfoolery. Taking a look at the ratings, over 4,000 of them, we see that there's lots of 8s for an overall rating of 7.9. 1830, like most 18XX games, well, really all of them, it's a super heavy game with a lot going on, a lot of rules, a lot of things to learn, a high learning curve, so its weight of 4.16 is understood. It makes sense. 1830 is one of the few games that I've done so far in this series of through the years, and I've only played it once, and I got stomped, to put it mildly. I didn't go bankrupt, which is somewhat of an accomplishment in this game, so I'm giving myself a moral victory for that one. If you want to learn more about 18XX games, I encourage you to look at Ambi's 18XX series here on the Dice Tower. They're very informative, lots of information. You can learn about this game and other 18XX games. I encourage you to try one out. They're a little bit heavy, a little bit crazy, but they're a lot of fun to learn. See you next time. 1987. Taking a look at the top 5 from 1987, we see the number 1 game is Balzac. Balzac? Coming in at 1,032. Balzac is a dexterity game with all these crazy, oddly shaped pieces. It is a bidding game. In this game, you're bidding to either take a piece that you really want, or potentially bidding not to take a piece that's really weirdly shaped and won't work very well. You're taking these pieces, you're building a tower, and you're trying to be like the last man standing usually. Balzac has many different names, many different reprints. It's probably most commonly known as Bandu, but there's also Sac Noir and Sac of Bricks and some other assorted names and games, but they're all basically the same. But each one has kind of a different twist on the game, different ways to bid, to take pieces or not take pieces. But it's just a bunch of bricks. This game is out of print, but you can sometimes find it in thrift stores and on the secondhand market with crazy increased jacked up prices. But if you're looking for a similar experience, you might try Junk Art by Pretzel Games. It came out a few years ago. Very similar, weird shaped pieces, building towers, trying not to fall over, that sort of thing. Take a look at the ratings. We see lots of 7s, 8s, and 6s for overall rating of 6.8. The weight comes in at a 1.3, which might even be too high for this game. The 80s are kind of letting me down. It's my generation, the 80s. This is the best 1987 can do. I guess it's all that and a sack of bricks. 1988. Taking a look at the top 5 from 1988, we see the number 1 game is Merchant of Venus. Specifically, the Avalon Hill version of Merchant of Venus, coming in at number 873. Merchant of Venus is a space-themed pick-up and deliver game that uses a roll and move mechanism. Wait. But you can upgrade your engines to make your movement more efficient. You can upgrade your ship as well that lets you roll a different numbers of dice and modifies how those dice work. So it's not just roll and move. Maybe. Take a look at the ratings, about 2,600 of them. We see lots of 8s and 7s for an overall rating of 7.2. At first glance, this looks like a pretty heavy, complex game, but overall it's not too complicated, and its weight of a 2.83 seems pretty reasonable. I recently had the privilege of playing this game for the first time at Board Game Geek Con 2019. That's the only time I played. With a crazy, tricked up, modified version of the game. It had upgraded bits, upgraded components, an amazing map, super duper crazy good stuff going on. Just look at this. Look at it even closer. I am now officially too spoiled to play this game with the normal components. Maybe. See you next time. 1989. Taking a look at the top 5, we see the number 1 game from 1989 is Space Hulk First Edition, coming in at 522. That's a pretty solid top 5. Congrats, 89. Space Hulk is a scenario-based combat game set in the 40K universe, pitting the Space Marines against the Gene Stealers. Think Aliens from the movie Aliens. The scenarios are very short and snippy. Usually the Space Marines have some sort of goal, like getting to a certain area, or finding a certain item, or surviving. Just surviving. And the goal of the Gene Stealers is usually to kill every single Space Marine.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Take a look at the ratings, over 3,500 of them. We see lots of 8s for an overall rating of 7.5. The weight comes in at 2.51. Pretty light for a 40K Games Workshop game. Doing this episode of By the Numbers brought back all kinds of fond memories. I remember playing scenario after scenario after scenario of Space Hulk in my younger days. I love the game. I love mainly playing the Marines for whatever reason. These days, I probably want to play the Aliens. See you next time.